It's 2 o'clock, so let's proceed with the Thursday, March 21st JWSC Commission meeting. I'll call it to order. I'll lead us in the invocation. I've asked Bob Duncan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Glynn County. We thank you for all of our staff members and the hard work they do. Father, just bless this commission and help our meeting to go in a manner that will help this community and benefit everyone that we serve. Help us to glorify you in everything we say and do, and it's in Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have anybody who wants to make a public comment, so we'll proceed to the next item. We need to have a motion to excuse one of our commissioners, Tripp Stevens, from the meeting. Can I have that motion, please?
Motion?
Second. Okay.
The motion and second, all in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We'll proceed with committee updates. On March 8, 2019, we had a Facilities Committee meeting. At that meeting, we discussed 4 items for approval. Well, the minutes, of course, but then the North Mainland Splosh Phase 2 and 3. And that was presented to us by staff, and it was approved for submission to this committee for full approval. And then the Academy Creek influent pump purchase to replace an existing pump, that was also approved. And the surplus equipment to put an item that we have that's not being used into surplus equipment so it can be sold. We then went into a pretty good discussion on the operation of the water system with elevated tanks and pressures, et cetera. And then we talked about sludge dewatering and drying and the cost thereof. And there's going to be a presentation made later on the possibility of purchasing some equipment so we can start hauling our own sludge rather than contracting it out at a savings. There was a North Mainland SPLOST presentation talking about the additional capacity that we'll be receiving from that. That presentation will be updated tomorrow to give us a little bit clearer picture of that. And then we talked about the status of the Magnolia Park water line replacement project. The thing is there, we don't want to be holding up the city of Brunswick on their paving of those streets. And I think that project is about ready to be ready to go out to bid. And then we talked about the St. Simon's smoke testing project and just the status of that, how the residents will be notified, and just some other items that might happen during that policy or during that project. And that's our Facilities Committee presentation. Is there a Finance Committee presentation?
We haven't had a Finance Committee meeting since our last report. Our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. It's open. I would like to say that the financial position of the commission of the JWSC continues to be strong. It's 1 month after the last report that we did. We're projected to end the year, the fiscal year, at the end of June in a net positive position. Reserves are strong. Financials look good. The staff has been working on us, for the committee, has been working on a 5-year forecast that demonstrates the drawdown on the reserves and capital improvement fees. And tomorrow, they've been working diligently on the 2019-2020 budget, putting that together, and we'll run the first pass of that by the committee tomorrow. So everybody's invited at 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Are there any other committee presentations?
No, Mr. Chairman.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Hearing none, we'll move to the approval section. First item is minutes from the March 7th, 2019 regular meeting. If you reviewed those, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve the March 7, 2019 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion passed 6-0. Item 2 is a BB&T bank line of credit.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table this item.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions? No questions. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Lift station 4056 and 4059 unsolicited proposal application. Todd Klein and Charlie Dominic.
Right, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. I'll field this one. Charlie provided a very detailed memo here. I'll give you the synopsis of the project. As these are become more familiar, this is an unsolicited proposal, and this is just the application to move forward with that unsolicited proposal process. Next step would be staff review of an engineering report, and then that may evolve into a comprehensive agreement for board approval after that. This project is a 240-unit proposed 240-unit apartment complex off Old Cypress Mill, some vacant land that's out there. And there's 2 stations in between it and that it would discharge to in the chain going through our collection system. It does go down to the 4021. 2 stations that are in between it are deemed as over design capacity currently, 4059 and 4056. And this agreement would be simply to take a look at those, see what it takes to upgrade them. There are small horsepower pumps in there now. Likely it's going to be a pump upgrade. So the money we're looking at, this project with development capital fees, very similar to another unsolicited proposal we've been through in comprehensive agreement with Bergen Woods Apartments up off the spur. And until we see design plans, we don't know the exact dollar figure for capital fees it would generate, but in the case of Bergen Woods, that was about $200,000. So we certainly would like them to utilize our tool that we provide for developments to upgrade the system to support the proposed developments.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion. I move that the JWSC approve an unsolicited proposal submitted by Hill Point LLC, subject to the receipt of the unsolicited proposal waiver and associated fee. I further move that the JWSC staff evaluate the propriety, feasibility, and reasonableness of promoting the priority of this project or a portion thereof. Further, I move that if the staff recommends moving forward, the JWSC attorney negotiate the comprehensive agreement for subsequent review and approval or rejection by the JWSC. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, indicate acceptance by raising your right hand. Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you.
The next item is the North Mainland 2016 Splash Phase 2 and Phase 3 engineering approval. As I mentioned in our commission facilities meeting, we had a presentation on this by the staff, and the JWSC has received proposals from 4 engineering firms, and they were ranked by staff, and the recommendation was to award the contract to Thompson Hutton Engineering Company. They had the highest score of 317 based on the rating that we have set up and the points that the staff members who did the rating gave them. Do I hear a motion that we recommend award with that?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission enter into a contract with Thomas and Hutton Engineering Company in the amount of $695,035 for engineering services proposal related to the SPLOST 2016 North Mainland Phase 2 and 3 projects.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir, I got one question. You say this came through the Facilities Committee. Were there any issues at the Facilities Committee?
No, we talked about, we had the scoring. I think you'll have the same scoring thing on the
Yeah, I saw the scoring thing. but-
agenda. We looked at that, and we talked about I think we had 4 staff members,
Okay,
and they followed the ideas that the points that we came up with.
okay, well, we just know we had some issues with our system previously, so that's the reason why I asked that question.
Yeah, and that's why we've got the new points,
Okay,
and that was one thing we wanted to make sure of. And also, we wanted to make sure that when we looked at the items, we looked at the
Yes.
numbers, and we said, okay, that makes sense as far as the numbers.
okay, that's all I want to know, Mr. Chairman, just make sure we was following the new guidelines that we set in place.
Right.
Good question.
Any other questions? We'll have a vote. Indicate if you approve, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. The next is Academy Creek Influent Pump Purchase. Andrew Burrs.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. At the last Facilities Committee meeting, we discussed purchasing a new influent pump for Academy Creek. Academy Creek has 4 slots for influent pumps. One of those is currently out of service and in need of a lot of repair. We got the quote back on the repair price of being $52,000, so we checked what a new pump would cost, and it was $57,000. So we thought it probably made more sense to buy a new pump than repair a 10-year-old pump for $52,000. So this is a sole source and pump purchase agreement with Goforth Williamson. They are the sole source provider for Brunswick pumps and for the state of Georgia. So we do not have to go out for bid for this, so this will be purchased from them. Probably looking at about a 6-month lead time on this pump, just because they don't keep pumps this size on the shelf. But the quicker we can get it ordered, we may can cut some time off of that. So this would be the request to make that purchase.
25. Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of the purchase of the new Yeoman's Model 14206 submersible pump in the amount of $57,791 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions?
Where will you get the money for this pump purchase?
We could take it out of R&R, or we could take, the wastewater treatment plant budget is over budget at this point. We could take it out of that as well, but realizing he's already over budget, the revenues are exceeding our expenses at this point. We could do that out of the operating budget, but he is already over budget because of the issues with the dryer and all the landfilling charges we've had to pay.
Do you have a specific recommendation as to which category it's funded from? Or a preferred category?
I would prefer just to pay for it out of the operating budget instead of using capital funds on the individual pump purchase like this. I'd rather save that money for project work.
I'd agree with you. We're running a surplus this year.
Okay, but now, this is a capitalized project.
Right, yeah, it will go in the fixed asset module, and John will take care of capitalizing it, but buy it out of the operating funds.
Any other questions? There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6 is approval to proceed with purchase of equipment and vehicles for sledge hauling. Mr. Burrs.
Yes, sir. At the Facilities Committee, a couple of weeks ago, we discussed this. This has been talked about with staff for several years now. We currently have a third-party contractor for public services to come in and haul our sludge to the landfill in Screven. The disposal for the tonnage at the landfill is $42 a ton. However, each pickup that they have charges us $450 for showing up, plus the fuel and environmental charges associated with that. You run the math for the amount of money we've spent for the past year, we are paying over $102 a ton to have sludge hauled to the landfill, so $60 of that is hauling charges. If we look at purchasing this equipment, we will, the savings for the next year would pay for the equipment and the boxes to do this in under 11 months based on the current tonnage rate we're rolling out. So this is a request to purchase a roll-off truck and associated 20 and 10-yard boxes to store at the 3 wastewater treatment plants. The 10-yard boxes will be for grit, the 20-yard boxes will be for sludge, and we would maintain these ourselves and take them to the landfill. There will be no required change to personnel to handle this. And we can, as part of the upcoming Academy Creek rehab project, we are looking at allowing the ability to transport the sludge from Dunbar and Southport and feed the dryer at Academy Creek so that it can be hauled at 97, 98% solids instead of 16 or 17% solids when we can get to do that. So having our own equipment allows us to do that as well when that comes about, instead of having to pay them $450 to pick it up to take it to one spot and then $450 to take it when it goes through the next process. So estimated annual savings based off the current tonnage is over $250,000. Total purchase price based off of quotes we received, we will have to go out to bid for this. For the equipment and all of the boxes is around $208,000. Fuel and maintenance costs are included in that 10.9-month payback.
That's the estimated fuel to haul it to Scriven?
Yes, sir. That's assuming 4 miles per gallon, all with additional mileage each way to allow for time if you're having to idle at the landfill.
And includes the environmental fees that we would have to pay?
Yes, sir. We have previously hauled sludge ourselves, and we had an agreement with a previous third party that we're taking it for beneficial reuse, and we got rid of the equipment. So this would be basically to get the equipment back, so this is a process we have done in the past.
Are we gonna buy just one truck?
For right now, I would suggest buying just one truck. If we had a maintenance issue with a brand-new truck, that would be surprising, but we could also get somebody to come pick it up for the time period it was down. For no more than the risk of that truck going down, it's probably worth only buying one at this point. We may come back to you in a few years asking for a second truck just to make sure we can have some backup.
How much tonnage do we haul in one truck?
In one truck, we haul between 10 and 15 tons, depending on whether it's, if it's went through the dryer, we haul about 10 tons. It's got a lot more actual sludge in it because it's sludge, but if it's got just the pressed sludge instead of the dried sludge, it's around 15 tons.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission solicit bids for the purchase of one roll-off truck and required roll-off containers for sludge hauling to be funded from the JWSC Capital Reserve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I have one question. At the facilities meeting, I thought we asked that you go back to the hauler and ask them if they would give us a better price.
I've made multiple phone calls and have yet to have received a new quote from them as of yet. We did have another hauler that offered to do it for $375 a load, but that's still substantially more than what we can do it for ourselves.
Okay.
Is there a way to pay for this without going to the capital reserve?
I would prefer not to take this amount of money out of the operating budget if we didn't have to. We were talking about, there's the capital reserve, not the R&R reserve, that's funded at around $300,000 a year, so we were talking about taking this money out of there.
This replaces, some of these monies replace funds that would be coming out of the operating budget because we're lowering the cost in the operating budget. I suppose we could put that difference, the surplus that we have at the end of the fiscal year, maybe we would put that difference that was saved from this particular item back into the capital reserve.
Certainly could be done, yes, sir.
It wouldn't be as much.
It would not be as much. Remember that the dryer's been down for a few months now, so our sludge hauling to date is substantially higher than predicted So there may not be a whole lot of funds left in the savings by the end of this fiscal year. We would expect to pick those up for next fiscal year.
Well, after we receive the bids, we'll know how much money we're talking about.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So we don't know that number yet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none, raise your right hand for your approval. Motion passed 6-0. The next item is surplus of equipment approval.
Good afternoon. The memo before you is for approval to dispose of surplus equipment. It's a Bobcat excavator from our water distribution division. There's not a fit for the item anywhere else in the organization. We've double-checked that with other operating areas. The specific problems why it doesn't work with our group is the bucket's too large on it, and then they've had some issues with the swing arm on one side of it. There's still some value in it, just not to us, and so the plan is we would surplus it and then put it out on one of the Gov Deals type sites and recoup a bit of money for it. This item, I believe, went through Facilities Committee for approval last week also.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water and Sewer Commission approve asset number WDE-106 be declared as surplus and be disposed of in a manner most beneficial to the Brunswick-Glynn County Joint Water Sewer Commission.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Bowles. We'll move to the discussion section. Item 1 is AMI Business Case Analysis Update. Jimmy Junkin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. What we have here today is a kind of a summary of the activities that have gone on in regards to replacing the existing meters and meter throughout our system. We've been in contact with Georgia Power regarding a lease option to purchase census iPearl meters, basically a mag meter as opposed to the positive displacement meters we currently use, and Georgia Power telemetry tied to the Georgia Power advanced metering infrastructure, which basically takes the signals from all the remote meters, pulls them into collectors or repeaters, brings it back into the office for managing the billing and whatever other customer service uses it has. The model that we looked at with Georgia Power was a 20-year model that basically is a full-blown lease. And looking at it, we looked at phasing it in over a period of 5 years so that we could, get the things that are going bad on us and have gone bad and replace them as time goes on. We eventually, in discussions with other meter providers and other folks in the industry, found that there was other opportunities, and as such, staff put together a pro forma to basically look at the net present value after 20 years, and it looks like that we're in a situation where, of the folks we've talked to so far, and that being Georgia Power, Camstruck, and then looking at the Metron replacement that we're doing right now, we've got the numbers you see in front of you in the article, in the summary. The 20-year cost for Georgia Power came to approximately 33.4, and this takes into account all the savings. Again, it's a net present value. 17.3 for the Camstruck approach, and 31.4 million over 20 years to go with the approach that we're currently doing, replacing the meters that are bad with Metrons as we go. Looking at this, and even if there was only one option out there, and we hadn't looked and done the due diligence we should be doing, the issue is that the kind of monies we're talking about, we feel like we know we need to do a competitive procurement on this approach. And what we're looking at doing is a RFQ. We've already established the parameters, or some of the parameters we want to use in developing the RFQ and going out and putting it out competitively. In talking to at least one of the vendors, we got competitive RFQs from sister utilities out there, and we're going to reach out and try to get some more. Just got them in today, so I didn't have a chance to pull them together and share them. Our approach is going to be to continue down this path, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks, pull together something that we can come back and offer up as an approach we want to take to do a competitive RFQ. At this time, I think by doing so, we're going to get a better analysis of what options are out there. We're also going to get better, more competitive pricing. And again, the numbers we've got right now are without anybody knowing they're competing with anybody else. I think within a competitive RFQ, we'll get the best price out of everybody and get the best offerings in terms of what the functionalities are for their systems and that kind of thing. And that's where we're at.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll just make a general comment. I commend the staff for pursuing this much closer. It's, in my view, it's a financial approach for us and a long-term financial commitment. We've learned a good bit from the potential vendors that might support our needs, and taking the approach that our director wants to pursue, I think, is prudent.
I got a question, comment rather. Now, we're replacing all the new meters that we just recently started, or are we just gonna start if we go with this system?
They may indeed wind up being the parent company that we go with, depending on what we get from the response to the RFQ. I don't know that we will be replacing them as yet.
And I've realized continuous improvement is what we strive for anyhow. But I think recently we just upgraded some of our meters, and
We have replaced some of the Baxters with the Metrons, which is a step up from where we were.
and this will be a step. Okay, all right, I see it.
Some of the options we're looking at will allow us to read the meters from the office if we have a customer that's coming in and wants to see their data and everything like that, versus having to send a truck out to the actual meter, either as a radio or.
So some of the meters that we have can do this, have this capability already.
Some of them.
The Metrons do already.
Metrons do. Okay. And we have approximately how many meters, basically?
30,000.
Yeah, in the ballpark, maybe
And how many-
26,000 residential.
How many do we have to read manually right now?
We are reading around 1,500 manually right now.
And that's kind of what's driving this.
That's kind of what's driving this. We're losing about, of the old Badger registers, we're having between 100 and 150 fail a month. Just because the battery on the register, the meter still works just fine. It's just the transmitter on the registers, the battery's dying on them. So we have to go out and physically get that reading. So if we looked at the expense of just buying registers, it may be more prudent to look at just replacing the whole meter, because some of the newer technologies and composite meters are cheaper than some of the register options.
And if you replace those meters, you're gonna replace them with the newer meters, the new, that can do all the stuff that we need.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's I guess $1.7 million per year for 20 years if we do with the 33.4 million. So it's gonna be an added capital expense.
Yes, sir, it will be. And we've, in fact, the project that, the capital project cash flows that we were talking about, we've already kind of factored that into the 5-year plan. But the numbers, 33 is the high number. And I do believe that if we do the competitive RFQ, we're going to get better numbers from maybe each and every one of them. And we're going to invite some of the other major industry leaders into the process.
Okay.
Is that 17.3 million from Camstrup?
Yes.
Compare with the 33 from GPC?
Yep.
Same?
Same functionality, the same situation, slightly better terms in terms of their lease process, and their lease process actually at the end of 10 years instead of 15 years is we own the product. We're not still hanging out there to be required to play. The Georgia Power approach was one that was a 15-year lease with us paying continuing to pay the lease price, which is pretty formidable right now. I think it'll get better once we do the RFQ, but the original agreement that they offered up for proposal was going to be at the end of the 15-year period. If we decided we didn't want to go that route anymore, they were going to give us 3 months to figure out what we're going to do and swap out meters, which wasn't practical. It would almost be a sure thing. You'd be stuck with those meters and paying that lease price for a while. But I think with the RFQ process, we'll get better terms.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we'll move to Executive Director's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few quick items to hit on. We've got the Chamber of Commerce Spring Luncheon coming up on April 4th, which corresponds to the first meeting, commission meeting for us in April. I passed out an email requesting that we move the Chamber of Commerce meeting, the commission meeting back 30 minutes to allow everybody time to get back. And I guess if with everyone's permission here today, we'll go ahead and pencil that in and get the notice out.
Is that okay with everybody?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll support that.
All right, sir. And then a reminder, this coming week, I'll be at the GAWP, the Georgia Association of Water Professionals Executive Forum on the 25th. So I'll be out for a day, 2 days, the 24th and 25th. Let's see, the other quick items, there's been a lot of discussions with some of the commissioners about our asset management and critical instrument program. I just want to make you all aware that we have taken some pretty dramatic moves here of late. We've lined up somebody that's going to be working on helping us quickly accumulate the critical assets we have, at least in our wastewater treatment areas initially. We're going to pull that together along with all the preventive maintenance requirements as manufacturers require. One of the things we've got a problem with is the lack of documentation out there on what our equipment needs and what we should be doing. So we're going to get the list together, track down the pertinent information, get it into our CMMS, and start making sure that all the necessary PMs are getting done as quickly as possible. If this works out well, we're going to probably move to request substantial money to do all the rest of the process areas out there. And there'll be some impacts in our budget we'll talk about. The sewer expansion RFP that the commission requested, we should be getting responses this coming week on the 27th. The Academy Creek odor control RFP, we should be looking at responses for them the day after. Let's see, other big things. Hazard mitigation grants for the switch gear and the generators is moving ahead to the federal level. Is that correct? So FEMA's going to be taking a look at that. We've basically passed all the state level GMA.
They're at that final review for that, and so then there's the extra program coordinating from the previous hurricane.
Okay, so we're in the home stretch. Is that a appropriate way to describe it? And that's my update, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And the GFA loan, we'll be hearing from that in May, is that correct?
May
When the
4th.
board meeting is?
May 4th is the review date
Okay.
for the board.
And we've got the RFP out for the Academy Creek and Dunbar Creek
Yes, sir.
projects.
That pre-proposal meeting is next Tuesday.
Okay. Well, we're glad to see things moving, and hopefully we're going to have some projects under construction pretty soon to improve our system. And that's my update, I guess. So we do have an executive session. It's going to be for property and personnel. So do I have a motion that we convene
So
for
move to
executive
go
session?
into executive session.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Motion carries.
We adjourn?
Second.
All right.
Thank you.
Why is it cold up here?
See you then.